We often think of history in terms of kings and battles, but the most dramatic stories can be about something else entirely: money. This is a story of how one man's radical idea created a financial mania so intense it nearly destroyed the nation of France. It is a timeless cautionary tale of greed, delusion, and the madness of crowds. Our story begins in Paris. In the year 1715, the Sun King, Louis XIV, is dead. He left behind a kingdom that was magnificent and cultured, but also completely and utterly bankrupt. Decades of endless wars and extravagant spending had emptied the royal treasury. The government was on the verge of collapse. The new ruler, the Duke of Wastou, was the regent for the young King Louis XV. He was desperate for a solution. Into this crisis walked a savior, or so he seemed. His name was John Law. Law was a Scotsman, a brilliant mathematician, a charismatic gambler, and a convicted murderer on the run. But Law was also a financial visionary, a man with ideas far ahead of his time. He believed the wealth of a nation was not just its gold and silver coins, but its trade and commerce. He had a radical proposition for the desperate French regent. "Let me create a national bank," he said. This bank would issue a new kind of money, paper money, backed by the full faith and credit of the state. This paper currency would be easy to use and would help stimulate this stagnant economy. The regent, seeing no other way out of his country's debt crisis, agreed to the plan. In 1716, John Law established his bank. At first, it was a spectacular success. The new paper money was convenient and reliable. Commerce and industry began to boom. John Law became a national hero. He was seen as a financial wizard, a true genius. He was welcomed into the highest circles of French society, and his power grew immense. But this was only the beginning. Law had a much grander ambition. To truly expand his system, he needed a huge new enterprise to generate wealth for the nation. He took control of a failing French trading company called the Mississippi Company. The company supposedly had exclusive rights to trade and develop the vast French territory of Louisiana. John Law then launched one of the most brilliant and deceptive marketing campaigns in history. He described Louisiana as a modern-day paradise, overflowing with gold, silver, and precious jewels. He printed beautiful maps showing bustling cities and rich mines that simply did not exist. In reality, Louisiana at that time was mostly undeveloped swamp and dense forest. But the French public, desperate for hope and wealth, believed every single word. Law began selling shares in his Mississippi Company to the public. The money from the shares, he said, would be used to develop the immense riches of the New World. And so, the mania began. A frenzy of speculation swept through the city of Paris. The demand for shares was so intense that the price began to skyrocket uncontrollably. From 500 livres a share, it rose to 1,000, then 5,000, then an unbelievable 10,000 livres. The price was no longer connected to reality. It was a classic speculative bubble. Dukes, merchants, and servants all scrambled to buy shares. People from every class of society were caught in the craze. They sold their land, their homes, and their family heirlooms just to get in on the action. A single street in Paris, the Rue Quincampoix, became the chaotic center of this financial whirlwind. From dawn until dusk, the street was a mob of people buying and selling, screaming and shouting. Fortunes were made in an instant. A beggar one day could be fantastically rich the next. A hunchback famously rented out his hump as a portable writing desk. Stories of the new wealth were legendary. A new word was even coined to describe these overnight fortunes: millionaire. At the center of it all was John Law. He was now the most powerful man in France. He was made the Controller General of Finances, effectively the Prime Minister of the country. He had achieved his dream. But it was a dream built on a foundation of pure hype. The bubble continued to grow throughout 1719. It seemed like the party would never end. But a few clever investors, including a prince of the royal blood, saw the clear danger. They understood that the share price could not go up forever. It absolutely had to fall. Quietly, they began to cash in their shares, demanding not paper money, but solid gold and silver. They started a trickle. Soon, others followed their lead. The trickle became a stream, then a flood. The public began to realize there was far more paper money than actual gold in the bank to back it up. Panic began to set in. Everyone rushed to the bank at once, trying to get their gold before it was all gone. John Law tried everything to stop the panic. He devalued the currency and restricted gold payments. But these measures only made people more desperate. The trust in his system was broken. In May of 1720, the bubble finally burst. The Mississippi Company's share price collapsed. It plummeted back down to 500 livres and then to nothing. The paper money was worthless. Its financial ruin was catastrophic. Thousands of people were completely wiped out. The millionaires of yesterday were the beggars of today. Life savings vanished overnight. The mood in Paris turned ugly. The public that once hailed John Law as a savior now wanted him dead. Angry mobs rioted in the streets. They smashed the windows of his bank. John Law, the great financial genius, was now the most hated man in France. He was forced to flee the country in disguise, with nothing but the clothes on his back. He would die in poverty a few years later in Venice, a forgotten and broken man. The Mississippi bubble left a deep and lasting scar on the nation of France. The economy was in chaos, far worse than before Law had even arrived. For generations afterward, the French people developed a profound distrust of paper money and central banks. This distrust would hamper the country's economic development for more than a century. The story of John Law is a timeless one, of how easily logic is overwhelmed by emotion. It shows the incredible power of a good story, especially one that promises instant wealth. It reveals the dangerous psychology of crowds and how a shared delusion can take on a life of its own. The Mississippi bubble was not the first speculative mania, and it was certainly not the last. He understood finance in a way no one else did. From the Dutch tulip mania to the stock market crash of 1929, to the dot-com bubble. The pattern repeats. The details change, but the human behavior remains the same. John Law was both a genius and a reckless gambler. But he failed to account for the most volatile element in any economic system: human greed. He built a system based on confidence, and when that confidence vanished, the entire structure collapsed. The story serves as a powerful cautionary tale about the difference between value and price. The Mississippi Company had some value, but the price of its shares was driven by pure fantasy. A fantasy that an entire nation chose to believe in, with catastrophic results. It's a reminder that what goes up, especially when it goes up that fast, must inevitably come down. The street where the trading happened, the Rue Quincampoix, fell back into obscurity. The instant millionaires faded back into the crowd, their brief fortunes gone like smoke. France would eventually recover, but the memory of the Great Bubble lingered for a long time. It is a dramatic chapter in financial history, full of unforgettable characters and valuable lessons. It shows the immense danger that can arise when a brilliant idea is pushed too far, too fast. And it reveals how one charismatic individual can lead an entire nation to the brink of ruin. John Law flew too close to the sun, and the whole world saw him fall. His story is a testament to the seductive power of hope and the destructive force of greed. It's a tale of a financial system that appeared revolutionary, but was a house of cards. A system that promised infinite riches from a land that was mostly empty swamp. The man who sold a swamp to a nation left a legacy of ruin and a timeless warning. A warning about the madness of crowds and the wild, unpredictable nature of money. It's a story that has echoed throughout history and will surely echo again.